The massive spacecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek silver hull cutting through clouds like a knife. Inside the vessel, Captain Hai-Jin stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the planet's surface below. The Zaradin had traveled countless light years, believing they would find nothing more than a primitive world ripe for exploration. Yunji, her trusted lieutenant, approached with a data pad. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, analyzing incoming planetary information. "Captain," she said, her voice steady, "our initial scans are unexpected." Hai-Jin raised an eyebrow. In their culture, unexpected usually meant a potential threat or challenge. The Zaradin were warriors, trained from birth to be precise, calculated, and uncompromising. Their all-female society had never encountered male beings in their entire interstellar history. The ship's navigation systems hummed softly as they prepared for landing. Suyun, the youngest crew member, monitored the atmospheric entry, her hands dancing across complex control panels. Her breath caught slightly as the first glimpses of Earth's landscape came into view, a patchwork of green lands, blue waters, and sprawling urban centers. "Initial landing coordinates locked," Suyun announced, "preparing for touchdown in a urban research zone." Captain Hai-Jin nodded. Their mission was clear: observe, assess, and determine the potential for future colonization. The Zaradin had perfected the art of planetary reconnaissance over centuries of space exploration. They expected nothing more than a simple, primitive civilization. The ship's cloaking technology ensured they would remain undetected by Earth's primitive detection systems. As they descended, holographic screens displayed multiple data streams: population density, technological infrastructure, communication networks. Each piece of information challenged their initial assumptions. "This is impossible," Yunji muttered, her eyes wide as she reviewed the data. The technological complexity of the planet was far beyond what their intelligence reports had suggested. Cities sprawled across continents, complex communication networks crisscrossed the globe, and multiple technological systems operated simultaneously. Captain Hai-Jin felt a rare moment of uncertainty. In all her years of military training, she had never encountered a scenario that so completely defied expectation. The Zaradin prided themselves on their ability to analyze and conquer, yet this planet presented a puzzle they hadn't anticipated. The ship's landing sequence began, selecting a discrete location on the outskirts of a major urban center. Tall buildings and complex infrastructure surrounded their chosen landing zone. Sophisticated camouflage systems activated, rendering the massive spacecraft nearly invisible to surrounding technologies. "Prepare the first reconnaissance team," Hai-Jin commanded. Her voice was calm, but a subtle tension ran beneath her words. Something about this planet felt different. The data suggested a civilization that was anything but primitive. Yunji assembled the initial ground team, 6 of the most skilled warriors, each equipped with advanced scanning technology and adaptive combat gear. Their uniforms were a deep, midnight blue, designed for both camouflage and maximum mobility. Weapons were concealed but readily accessible, a standard procedure for any Zaradin mission. As the landing ramp descended, the first team members moved with practiced precision. Each step was calculated, each movement deliberate. They had no idea that their arrival would mark the beginning of something far more significant than a simple reconnaissance mission. The Earth around them hummed with life: technological systems, biological networks, communication signals that crisscrossed the atmosphere. What the Zaradin didn't realize was that they were about to encounter a species that would challenge everything they understood about civilization, gender, and potential. Captain Hai-Jin watched her team deploy, her hand unconsciously touching the communication device at her waist. Something told her this mission would be unlike any they had undertaken before. The planet below was not what they expected, and expectation, in the world of the Zaradin, was the first step toward potential defeat. Little did they know that their first steps on Earth would be the beginning of a transformation that would change their entire understanding of existence. The first Zaradin team stepped onto Earth's surface, their advanced scanning equipment activated and ready. Captain Hyojin's warriors moved in a tight formation, each step calculated and precise. The urban landscape around them buzzed with unexpected energy, vehicles moving quickly, people walking with purpose, buildings reaching impossibly high, into the sky. David Williams watched from a nearby observation point. As a senior military intelligence officer, he had been briefed on potential alien encounters, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. The aliens were unlike anything he had ever imagined. Tall, muscular women with an almost metallic sheen to their skin, moving with a grace that suggested both incredible strength and extreme discipline. The first direct encounter happened unexpectedly. A group of construction workers nearby suddenly stopped their work, their tools frozen mid-motion. Michael Rodriguez, a seasoned sergeant, was the first to react. His hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, but something held him back. A sense of curiosity that overcame immediate fear. One of the Zaradin warriors, Lieutenant Yunji, turned her head sharply. Her advanced sensory equipment picked up the human presence before her eyes could confirm it. The humans were different from what their initial scans had suggested. More complex, more varied in their movements and appearances. Hold position. Hyojin commanded her team in their native language, but her eyes betrayed a growing sense of confusion. The males before them were nothing like the simple, primitive beings they had expected to encounter. David Williams took a careful step forward. His military training screamed caution, but his scientific curiosity pushed him to approach. The aliens, noticed immediately, their entire team shifting into a defensive formation that was both beautiful and terrifying to watch. Michael Rodriguez spoke first, his voice clear and steady. "We mean no harm," he said, holding his hands out in a universal gesture of peace. The translation device on the Zaradin team immediately converted his words, causing a visible reaction among the alien warriors. Yunji was the first to respond. Her voice came out in perfect, albeit slightly mechanical English. "Your communication systems are impressive," she said, her eyes scanning the surrounding area. The human males looked nothing like the weak, simple creatures the Zaradin had anticipated. The construction workers began to move again, but more slowly. Some looked terrified, others looked fascinated. A young worker named Tom dropped his hammer, the metal clanging against the concrete ground. The sound seemed to startle the alien warriors, who moved with lightning-fast reflexes. "Interesting," Hyojin muttered, more to herself than to her team. The human males displayed a complexity of movement and emotion that their extensive research had not prepared them for. They were not just biological entities, they were dynamic, unpredictable. David took another step forward. "Welcome to Earth," he said, knowing how inadequate those words sounded in the face of this extraordinary moment. The tension was palpable. Years of military training had prepared the Zaradin for conflict, for conquest. But nothing had prepared them for this, a species that seemed to defy their every expectation. The human males stood their ground, showing a mixture of fear and curiosity that was completely alien to the Zaradin understanding of conflict. Michael Rodriguez noticed something first: the way the alien warriors moved, the subtle communications between them, the complex social structure that was visible even in this brief encounter. They were soldiers, yes, but they were also something more. As the minutes passed, an unspoken understanding began to form. This was not going to be a simple mission of conquest. This was going to be something far more complex, far more interesting. Hyojin realized something in that moment that would change everything. These humans were not a species to be conquered. They were a species to be understood. The first encounter lasted only minutes, but it would become a moment that would change two civilizations forever. Neither the Zaradin nor the humans had any idea of the profound transformation that was about to begin. The days following the initial encounter became a complex dance of curiosity and caution. Yunji and her team found themselves in a research facility, surrounded by human experts who seemed equally fascinated by the alien visitors. The Zaradin had always believed their society was perfect, a well-oiled machine of female warriors and leaders. But Earth was proving to be something entirely different. Sergeant Park watched carefully as the alien team tried to understand human social dynamics. They were particularly confused by simple interactions: how men and women worked together, how families functioned, how emotions played a role in decision-making. In the Zaradin world, everything was logical and structured. Here, everything seemed beautifully chaotic. One afternoon, a young researcher named Jae Sung brought in photographs of his family. The Zaradin warriors gathered around, their advanced eyes scanning every detail. They saw something they had never experienced before: a father playing with children, parents supporting each other, complex emotional bonds that went beyond simple survival. In our world, Yoonji explained to Sergeant Park, we are born, trained, and serve our collective purpose. But here, humans seem to find purpose in connection. The most shocking revelation came during a military training demonstration. Human. Soldiers showed how different genders work together, not as separate units but as integrated teams. The Zaradin watched in complete amazement as men and women communicated, supported, and protected each other with an intuition that seemed almost magical. Michael Rodriguez led a demonstration of team dynamics. He explained how human strength came from understanding, from empathy, from the ability to connect emotionally and strategically. The Zaradin warriors took notes, their entire understanding of warfare being challenged with each passing moment. Captain Hye-jin found herself most intrigued by human art and music. In their demonstrations, she saw something revolutionary. Emotions were not a weakness but a strength. Humans expressed pain, joy, love, and anger as powerful forms of communication. This was completely opposite to the Zaradin approach of emotional suppression. During a cultural exchange, a human musician played a traditional Korean folk song. The melody was simple, but it carried centuries of human experience. Yoonji felt something she had never experienced before, a deep, inexplicable emotional response that went beyond logical understanding. The Zaradin researchers began to realize that human males were not simple or weak. They were complex beings, capable of incredible strength, deep emotions, and remarkable adaptability. Their social structures were not primitive. They were incredibly sophisticated in ways the aliens had never imagined. Sergeant Park noticed how the alien warriors slowly changed. Their rigid postures became more relaxed. Their conversations became more exploratory. They asked questions not just about technology or military strategies, but about human experiences, human connections. One evening, during a casual dinner, a human child approached the alien team without fear. The Zaradin warriors were stunned by the child's curiosity, by the pure, unfiltered way humans approach the unknown. It was a moment that challenged everything they understood about interaction and fear. We were wrong, Hyejin admitted quietly, to her team. Completely and totally wrong about humans. The cultural revelation was more than just an intellectual discovery. It was a fundamental transformation of their understanding of existence. The Zaradin had traveled across galaxies, conquered numerous planets, but they had never truly understood the power of diversity, of emotional intelligence, of connection. As the days passed, the line between alien and human began to blur. They were no longer just studying each other, they were learning from each other. The Zaradin saw humans not as a potential conquest, but as potential partners in understanding the complex universe around them. Something remarkable was happening. Two completely different civilizations were discovering that their differences were not barriers but bridges to a deeper, more profound understanding of life itself. The cultural revelation had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The tension erupted without warning. A global security threat emerged, a massive cyber attack that threatened multiple international systems. The Zaradin found themselves unexpectedly thrust into a real-world crisis alongside human military forces. Captain Hye-jin watched as human military teams mobilized with a precision that shocked her previous assumptions. Michael Rodriguez coordinated multiple international units with a complexity that defied traditional warfare strategies. Male and female soldiers worked together seamlessly, each compensating for the other's potential weaknesses. The cyber attack targeted critical infrastructure, power grids, communication networks, financial systems. Within minutes, entire cities faced potential blackout. The human response was immediate and coordinated. Zaradan warriors who had previously believed in their technological superiority now watched in absolute amazement. Lieutenant Yunji discovered something profound during the crisis. Human problem-solving wasn't about individual strength, but collective intelligence. Military teams broke traditional combat protocols, using creativity and adaptive thinking that no standard military training could predict. Sergeant Park demonstrated a tactical approach that completely bewildered the Zaradan observers. He used unconventional communication methods, creating temporary networks using personal devices, civilian infrastructure, and improvised communication channels. The aliens realized this was not just a military operation, it was a nationwide, collaborative effort. The cyber attackers remained anonymous, striking from multiple global locations. Human response teams worked in shifts, with different units covering each other's operational gaps. Male analysts provided strategic calculations. Female commanders made critical real-time decisions. The gender collaboration was seamless and powerful. Hai-Jin watched a young female technical specialist work alongside male security experts. They communicated with minimal verbal interaction, understanding each other's movements and intentions instantly. This was not just teamwork. This was a complex, almost instinctive collaboration that the Zaradan had never witnessed. As hours passed, human teams gradually contained the cyber threat. They didn't just defend, they counterattacked, tracing digital footprints, creating defensive algorithms, and neutralizing potential future threats. The Zaradan warriors took extensive notes, their understanding of warfare being completely reconstructed. Michael Rodriguez noticed the alien team's intense observation. During a brief moment of calm, he approached Captain Hai-Jin. "We're not just fighting," he explained. "We're solving a problem together." Those words echoed deeply with the Zaradan team. Their entire civilization was built on hierarchical structures and rigid protocols. Humans demonstrated something different: adaptability, collective intelligence, emotional resilience. The cyber attack revealed more than just technological capabilities. It exposed the human capacity to unite, to overcome challenges through cooperation rather than pure military might. The Zaradan warriors saw vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a strength that allowed for rapid adaptation. Communication networks that seemed chaotic actually revealed a complex, intelligent design. Individual human units might appear disorganized, but they moved with a collective intelligence that was breathtaking to observe. By the operation's conclusion, the human teams had not just defended their systems, they had transformed the very nature of the threat. The Zaradan warriors understood something profound. Human strength was not about individual power, but collective potential. Captain Hai-Jin looked at her team. Their previous mission of potential conquest now seemed ridiculous. These humans were not a civilization to be conquered. They were a civilization to be understood, perhaps even respected. As night fell and systems were restored, the Zaradan team realized their entire understanding of warfare, cooperation, and civilization had been fundamentally transformed. The confrontation was not between humans and aliens, but between old assumptions and new understanding. Something significant had changed, and neither civilization would ever be the same again. The confrontation had revealed a truth more powerful than any technological weapon. The true strength of a civilization lies not in its ability to fight, but in its capacity to adapt, to connect, and to solve challenges together. The final diplomatic conference brought together the most important leaders from both civilizations. The massive convention center in Geneva buzzed with an energy that felt both hopeful and uncertain. Captain Hai-Jin stood beside David Williams, her previous assumptions about human society completely dismantled. Global representatives watched carefully as the Zaradan delegation prepared to speak. This was more than a diplomatic meeting. It was a moment of potential transformation for two entire civilizations. The human leaders represented different countries, different backgrounds, but they shared one common understanding: Something extraordinary was happening. Hai-Jin stepped forward. Her voice, once cold and calculated, now carried a different tone, one of genuine curiosity and respect. "We came believing we would conquer," she said simply. "We are leaving understanding that true strength is not about domination, but collaboration." The room fell silent. Translation devices worked quickly, converting her words into multiple languages. Michael Rodriguez watched from the side, a subtle smile crossing his face. The transformation was more than diplomatic. It was deeply personal. The Meter Zaradin had discovered something revolutionary during their time on Earth. Human society wasn't weak or primitive. It was complex, adaptive, and incredibly resilient. Their all-female warrior culture now understood that diversity was not a weakness, but the most powerful survival strategy in the universe. David Williams presented a comprehensive report. It detailed how the Zaradin's initial reconnaissance had completely changed. What began as a potential invasion had transformed into a potential partnership. The technological and cultural exchange possibilities were unprecedented. Scientific teams from both civilizations had already begun collaborative research. They were exploring everything from medical technologies to space exploration strategies. The Zaradin brought advanced computational abilities, while humans offered innovative problem-solving approaches. Yunji, who had been most skeptical initially, now spoke about human emotional intelligence. "We thought emotions were a weakness," she explained. "We now understand they are a sophisticated communication system that allows for complex problem-solving." The diplomatic teams worked through complex negotiations. They weren't just discussing a simple treaty, they were redesigning the potential for interstellar cooperation. Cultural exchange programs were proposed. Joint scientific missions were planned. The universe suddenly felt smaller and more connected. Sergeant Park demonstrated how human military training could be integrated with Zaradin tactical approaches. The result was a hybrid strategy that combined emotional intelligence with precise technological execution. Military leaders from multiple countries listened in fascination. One remarkable moment came when a young Zaradin researcher asked to study human family structures. This was unthinkable in their previous cultural model. The request symbolized how deeply their understanding had transformed during their Earth mission. The conference wasn't just about diplomatic agreements. It was about fundamentally reimagining what was possible when two different civilizations approached each other, with genuine curiosity and respect. As discussions continued, it became clear that this was more than a first contact scenario. This was the beginning of a profound interstellar relationship that could change the future of both civilizations. Captain Hai-Jin realized something profound. Their mission had come full circle. They arrived expecting to conquer, and were leaving, having been conquered by a greater understanding that true strength lies in connection, in understanding, in seeing beyond one's own limited perspective. The diplomatic conference would be remembered as a turning point, not just for humans or the Zaradin, but for the entire concept of interstellar relationships. They had discovered something more powerful than any weapon, more valuable than any technological advantage: mutual respect. As the final agreements were signed, a new chapter in cosmic history began. Two civilizations, once strangers, now stood on the edge of a remarkable journey of mutual discovery. The transformation was complete, and nothing would ever be the same again.